Hey there everyone, it's JCA, hope you're staying well. I regret not making a video tutorial for this card I made from the sweet and fabulous March 2020 release, so I'm going to reimagine this design and incorporate newer Altenew products from the past year, in addition to some other Altenew must-haves. In this video, I'll also show you real-time or double-time flower coloring, something I've been wanting to share for a while. I'll be using this fabulous Florets stamp set. This 6x8 stamp set from Altenew also has a coordinating die and mask stencil set, and I'll be sure to link this stamp set below as well as other materials I used in this video. So to start, I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch panel of Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock in my mini MISTI, and I've arranged the outline flower and leaf stamps on the lid. I'll stamp these images multiple times using Ink on 3 Fadeout Ink. I use this ink exclusively for no outline alcohol marker coloring, and it works beautifully with the Altenew artist markers, which I'll show you in a second. I have all my Altenew artist markers swatched on these awesome color swatching charts from Waffle Flower Crafts. So these 3 color families are contained within Altenew artist markers set A and B, and I'm going for a warmer color palette with warm gray, summer afternoon, and cool summer night. Okay, so let's zoom in here and focus on this smaller panel of cardstock. I love my floral coloring to contain one very important element, and that's movement. So my philosophy is, in order to create kinetic art, you have to use deliberate strokes. So off to the top right, I'm using the brush nib on the Altenew artist marker to make these flicking lines. The finer the lines and the more the ink trails off in the end, the better. This means I'm holding the marker almost perpendicular to the surface instead of how you would normally hold a pen or pencil. Now that I have a few practice strokes done, let's add color to the flower. I am starting with my darkest marker on the tip of the petal. Wherever a valley or a fold points towards the center of the flower, I'll deepen that V shape with some flicking motions. Sometimes these outline stamps tell you where to place depth, so I'll add color and deepen those areas as well. Then from the center of the flower, I'll add the darkest marker with flicking motions, pointing to areas opposite to where I colored the folds on the tips of the petals. So in other words, instead of these V shapes pointing at each other, they'll create these zigzag lines on the petal. Adding this darkest color is the foundation of the rest of the petal coloring. From now on, I'll use the same flicking stroke to blend out the darkest shade, following the same zigzag coloring lines. Then I'll move on to the next lightest shade and blend the shade again. Then, depending on how light you want your flower to be, I'll keep moving up the light spectrum until I get the desired color. You'll see I'm not trying to smooth out layers of color. In fact, I want you all to see the brush strokes in the flowers. If you've seen certain real-life petals up close, you'll see the wonderful veining, and that's essentially where I get the inspiration from for the coloring. So here's one finished petal. If no outline coloring is a new concept for you or something you want to try for yourself, I find that the floral stamp sets that have these longer petal types in a single layer like a daisy are one of the best to practice these long flicking strokes. So I'll speed this up a little bit. Hopefully seeing more examples of each petal helps enforce the concepts I just mentioned. As for the center of the petals, they're all different based on your stamp sets. I still color from the darkest to lightest. It may help to break out the layering guide found on the stamp packaging to see where to add shadows and highlights with your Altenew artist markers, and simply follow these coloring cues. If it looks splotchy and amorphous, there's no worries. We will break out my other secret to these floral cards. A sharp colored pencil enhances outlines and cleans up the overall shape of the flower petal. I try to match the colored pencil to the darkest shade of marker to help define shadow boundaries. I still do the flicking motion with the pencil, and you'll be surprised by how much a difference a few pencil strokes make. Now I use Faber-Castell Polychromos, but that's because I felt the need to invest in quality pencils since I'm online. But maybe for your crafty stash, a great academic quality or student grade pencil will suit you much better. For me, I wanted a pencil core that could stay sharp and carry a high pigment load. I will also use the colored pencil to fix the center of the flower and define individual stamens and pistils. I don't use the flicking motion here. What I'll do instead is lightly hold the pencil and create these swirling motions to diffuse and create a gradient. Just as a note, this isn't botanical illustration or hyperrealism. This is a handmade card, so I am not going for perfection. I'm creating something I would be proud to give and that I enjoyed making. The same methods apply to the leaves. I'm using the warm gray family of Altenew artist markers and repeating the same steps from the flowers. I consider the leaves and their movement to be a continuation of the movement from the petals. So again, I'm finding these V shapes in the outermost portion of the leaves and deepening them with the darkest color in the layering markers. Then I'll blend them out using the next lightest shade. Finally, using the colored pencil to define outlines and refine the leaf shape. For more complex leaf forms, like the centers of the flowers, you can refer to the final layered image to help place shadows. In this case, since the leaf curls back on itself, I'm mimicking the coloring style with my artist markers. Hopefully what I've shown you is that there's no need to know shadow angles or light source. Altenew has made it really easy for you to color realistic looking leaves. And don't forget, you don't always have to start with the darkest ink color. You can start with the second ink color and work your way lighter for variation of leaf colors. By doing so, you create an interesting assortment of foliage, much like how bouquet leaves cast shadows when layered on top of each other. I'll move on to the larger panel and show you all the cool summer night variation of coloring. Hopefully all these examples help give you a new perspective on your card projects. I'll see you all in a bit. Alright, so here's everyone all colored. To cut these out, I used my trusty swivel knife from Fiskars to quickly fussy cut out the flowers. This means I won't end up with a white margin around these images like I would if I die cut these. Once I've cut out all the flowers and leaves that I've colored, I'll grab this newer favorite of mine from Altenew called the Fine Frames Diamond Die Set. I'll simply use my Altenew Mini Blossom die cutting machine to cut out a black frame from this glossy black cardstock. The sentiment comes from this much older favorite called Label Love. It is what inspired much of my embossing label obsession over the years of card making. I use this just for you sentiment often because it suits many different occasions. Last thing, as always, is some splatters. I love to dilute jet black ink spray with a little water and use an Altenew water brush to create this fine assortment of dots on my background. It might look like a lot of splatter, but most of it will be covered by the flowers, so don't be too shy with adding speckles. After arranging and gluing down the flowers with Tombow Mono liquid adhesive, I added even more splatters with pure white ink spray diluted with water. I finished this card by foam mounting the Label Love sentiment strip, and that's it for this eye-catching, vibrant floral card. Thank you so much for joining me today and helping me celebrate 6 years of crafty business with Altenew. By the time this video publishes, I would have been making cards and sharing designs with Altenew for a year, so this marks a significant occasion for me as well. If you like what you've seen from me, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it. All the materials I used in this card can be found in the description box below. Again, thank you so much for tuning into this coloring video. Please stay safe. I'll talk to you all very soon, and have the best day.